Yeah, that was short of wiping me arse. There's not much he didn't do for me.
These names would all absolutely batter him. It's not over yet. Tell me how you set from higher.
Oh yeah.
Running in my head.
I think you hit now on the head there. It's teaching the value of money. New setup.
Hey guys, we bought a studio.
My feet don't even touch the floor on this sofa.
Yeah, he's very short. Yeah, pretty excited. A bit more comfortable, as you can see. The lighting is a bit better. We had a negative comment by one Mr. Mal Herber, who said something along the lines of "good lighting, fellas" or something. So we took his comments on board. Char took them to heart actually, and he was quite actually upset. So if Mr. Mal Herber is watching, then just know that you've upset Mr. Cannon. This was a surprise to me as well. That's how I knew how deeply it hurt Char. I turned up today and he had made this studio for us.
Yeah, set up some candles and greeted you with a bunch of flowers at the door. Speaking of a bunch of flowers, you just said, I didn't see this video, but the Tommy Fury fight, which we'll get onto in a minute, but you said you saw a video of Molly-Mae greeting him with...
Yeah, so it just goes to show that classic point of like, with the current age that we live in, where everyone is everything's so fake online, and with these influencers and whatnot, like Molly-Mae supposedly is, everything's just so fake. So he gets home after beating Jake Paul.
Something more interesting, Bill.
Huh?
Something more interesting.
No, just getting messages. I've got to keep the ear to the ground. He gets home. I'll just show you the video and I'll explain for the audio listeners. But this is him arriving home.
Why did he walk in with a fucking belt over his shoulder as well? Like, he just...
So he's walked in, for people listening on audio, aka Joe Ball. He's walked in with just a backpack on and his fake fucking WBC belt that they gave him and Jake Paul. And Molly-Mae has set up a camera showing the front door, put up balloons, and she's walked around the corner and greeted him all happy after he's walked in. Where's your suitcase, pal? He's been in Saudi Arabia for weeks. On training camp before that, he's not seen Molly. Where's your suitcase? You just walked in looking all fresh, gel freshly done, backpack on. He's obviously arrived and she has said, I'm going to set up my camera. You're going to walk back outside and come back in and I'll put it on my Instagram.
Just like, script it and all. Like,
Script, exactly. And it's just like, just enjoy the moment. Like, I cannot imagine, say Ree's been away. And she gets back and I haven't seen her in a month, 2 months. And I go, oh, fuck, hang on, at the airport. I've brought a tripod. I'm going to set that up. You run up to me. I'll give you a hug. Like, just enjoy the moment. Enjoy seeing your husband or boyfriend, I don't know if they're married, for the first time in a few weeks, whatever. Why does it have to be so forced and put online? I just don't get it. And that culture does annoy me.
But you also, you don't get paid to post constantly and shit like that, and they will lose followers, and if they start losing followers, people lose interest in their lives, they'll lose sponsorship deals. Like, their life revolves around social media because that is their income, sort of thing. Like, if they're not very, very active, and I do think it almost kind of just becomes a second habit, a way of basically it's just like you just naturally do it. Although, yeah, it's probably all very scripted and that. You don't even think twice. You're like, okay, yeah, we're just going to do this because all my fans are going to see it, and then they're more likely to click on my page and click one of my products and buy that sort of shit.
I get that.
People are so invested in their lives.
Oh, it's sad. But I get that aspect of it. I just think for something like that, you being reunited with your fella who you've not seen in weeks, why does that need to be filmed? You could have put up a video later on of even like a selfie being like, oh, he's been home now, we've caught up, blah, blah, blah. So proud of him for smashing up Jake Paul. Like, I just don't... that. It's so obviously scripted, and what gets me is I get that there's a big audience for it, but the audience that follows like Molly-Mae and watches her fucking daily vlogs about her life, surely they follow her to get real content, not stuff that's so obviously staged. Like, Stacey Solomon, she has this big following apparently that people are so invested in her life, and she posts like real stuff all the time. Are they not invested in your real life, not you setting up a camera, telling your husband to go outside and walk in and scripting something like that? I would have thought that the people that are following these influencers, although a lot of the life will be fake anyway, are not keen on something that's so obviously scripted. That's what I sort of confused me.
But then maybe to be fair, they're quite young. They're younger than us.
I know.
Maybe that's the maturity level, and that's just how they've grown up in that sense. Like
Grow up.
since they've started it. Obviously, they're from that whole Love Island scene as well, innit? So the whole thing revolves around them just fucking posting every second of every day of their life.
Yeah.
And they want to make it look as perfect as possible. This is me just making assumptions here and assuming what they're like, but it's not an uncommon thing to see across the board for like influencers.
Across the board.
I've done air quotes for influencers, people not watching on YouTube.
It's sad. I think, do you know what annoys me though? It's the same as like, I think the people who give it demand, I think are pathetic. Like, you're half of the problem. The fact that you literally follow these random people's lives who you don't know and watch their daily vlogs and follow this basically what's a reality TV show. I think you're pathetic. They're half the problem because them watching it fuels this culture of what happens. Because if no one watched it, to answer your point earlier, then she wouldn't be getting paid for engagement and she wouldn't be getting paid to post daily vlogs, etc. It's because there's an audience for it that it exists. And it's not to get too dark, but even like with like trafficking, something like child online, the people who do it are disgusting, but there's an audience for it, which is why it happens and why people make money out of it and why people do it. Not comparing influencers to like trafficking, but there has to be an audience and a customer base for something in order for it to actually be a money maker. Do you know what I mean? So I just don't get why people enjoy watching that sort of thing. But
it's because it's social media for a lot of people. It's like we've spoke about this before, but it's a form of escapism, and especially you got those younger. Let's be right, it's girls mostly. You don't get many teenage lads looking at Molly-Mae's story thinking, oh my God. Yeah, and it's just like a form of escapism for them. And they look at that and think, oh, I'd love to have that life. And instead, it's easier for them to look at it and wish and imagine it than to actually try and get it themselves. Not that I think that's a life to aim for, but it's a lot easier to lose yourself in a, like, and I know this is kind of jumping like ahead of it a little bit, but it is, people get lost in that world, and they're, because it's not just Molly-Mae they'll follow
Stacey Solomon.
But if you say Stacey Solomon's quite real about it, then yeah, but they probably do, to be fair. Follow all these influencers, and before you know it, your whole feed's just full of all these positive things, and then you come away and you're like, oh fuck me, my life looks nothing like that, my life's shit. So you jump back into it and just get lost in that again.
Yeah.
Even though people's lives aren't shit necessarily,
but
it's,
their life is seen as better.
I don't know what the quote is, but I think it might be Teddy Roosevelt. Comparison is the thief of joy. So comparing yourself to people just robs your own life of joy.
Very astute of you. Are you referring to Theodore Roosevelt?
Teddy.
Do you know him? Do you know him like that to be calling him Teddy? Or... Yeah, I think for them though, okay, you're adults, right? Another thing that bugs me, they're adults, although they're younger than us. Who has the better life? I know who I choose, and it isn't them. But they are younger than us, but they're adults, right? They've chosen to be influencers and to blast themselves on social media. Yeah. But there are like, not influencer families, but like vlogger families that get their kids involved as well. There's this thing called Family Fizz. I don't know if I've ever told you about it. But someone I know used to watch it, and I looked at it one day and was just like, what is this all about? And it's basically a family that vlogs daily, films about their life. I think they're like vegans and fitness fanatics or whatever it is. So they sort of do vlogs about that sort of stuff. They travel the world. Yeah, they travel the world loads and move around. Their kids get homeschooled, so they don't have like a hub in the UK. They live in Mexico, then they live in this place and then that place. And when I watched a few of the videos, what I felt really bad about was I was just like, there's kids here. One of the kids was like 16, so I thought, okay, they're a bit older. One of the kids was a toddler, one of the kids was like 5 or 6, and the kid who was like 5 or 6, for example, was so active on the camera constantly whenever it was out, looking at it. And I just sort of thought, those kids haven't had a life. Every moment of their whole life has been on camera for the whole world to see, and you've sort of raised them to do that themselves. Then moving forward, they've all got their own channels, etc., the kids. And it's just like, when you're an adult, you can make that decision to have your whole life out in the public image. But these kids don't have a choice. It's been forced upon them. Let's say they grow up and they're embarrassed by those videos that millions of people have watched. You can't ever escape that. Everyone's seen it, and that's not been your choice to post it. It's been...
No, it's on the internet. That's it. I suppose this could be like the new wave of child stars, couldn't it? Do you know how you had all like
Honey Boo Boo?
yeah, but like all the reality TV kids, the Disney Channel kids, and all that you see years later, or like that even in like times before we were kids, the child stars, and they could turn out fucked up. Obviously, film and TV isn't as big anymore, but YouTube, all like social media and that is. So all the, because this I've seen, I don't know that family you're talking about, but you do see a lot of like young kids that just go viral, shoot to this stardom, and we might see the repercussions of it in like 20 years time. It's going to be the new wave of fucking
crackers, like Macaulay Culkin type.
Yeah, literally all these kids just fucked up, all got drug problems and that. What they called oh no, I'm thinking of something different. Do you know, have you ever had nepotism kids? Yeah. Where they got famous parents, but yeah, that's something different, isn't it?
No, but it's. I feel sorry for the kids like that, because I just think you've never had a moment that you've just enjoyed with your family. Oh, we're going to Disneyland. They're vlogging the whole thing. They're going on holiday to somewhere else. They're vlogging the whole thing. They sit down for fucking dinner. There's a camera there, and you're vlogging what you're having for dinner. It's just like, have a bit of privacy with you and your family, and fucking enjoy yourself. Enjoy times yourself. Post once a week, but great. But like, I just think it's a bit fucking much, and it's a bit much to bring kids into. Like, the reason I bring that aspect up is because obviously Tommy and Molly-Mae have just had their child, right? Oh, Bambi. Is she going to be including Bambi in all the videos and stuff? Not that they should be taking, criticism or whatever of us. I wouldn't agree with it. I'd think that baby's it's like, kids, I think, keep private, out of the public eye until a certain age. Loads of family, like famous people, do it, whether it's footballers or film stars or whatever. They won't have their kids or their private family in the public eye because they know the damages it can cause. So I think for like a vlogger, you shouldn't be then putting your child, because they become semi-famous themselves at such a young age and probably get stopped in the street or get looked at, and they don't really have that privacy. So that's why I bring up the family aspect, is obviously because they've just had a baby now. It'd be interesting to see whether she, blasts the baby on her own.
With that though, with like footballers and other forms of celebrity, their life doesn't revolve around posting every second of their life on social media. Their real personalities and their celebrity personalities are two different things. Although, you do get a lot of that in social media as well. You probably get influencers that are absolute arseholes, but they act like they're the most charitable, like, giving person in the world on camera. But yeah, if your life revolves around being on camera, it just feels natural for you to document everything you do. It's even, I know it's nowhere near to the same scale, but when I first started doing like my PT stuff on Instagram, I'd find it really weird to like take pictures of things for my story and just do anything.
You feel like a twat.
Yeah, you do. But then you just get used to, even like now, I'll quite happily just turn my camera on if I'm doing something, even if it's not fitness related, and I'll record it and post it. I often don't, just pure laziness sometimes, but it's just, it feels a lot more natural just to do it. And if you're making more money off of it and there's more of an incentive to do it, you can imagine, it's just like their fucking second brain.
It was a silly question really that I set up. Be interesting to see whether she will now tap in. Of course she will. She'll tap into a whole new market of new mums, because she'll be vlogging about her journey as a mum and the issues of, with the babies, and then the differences when they're a toddler. And, like, it will resonate with normal mums who are going through the same thing. So she'll make a buck out of it. And actually, to go on the other side, because I'm speaking very negatively, but that'll actually be positive, because mums watching it will think like, fuck, I also felt shattered off, at the end of the day, and I thought, fuck, am I the only one that my baby's doing this and I'm having this problem and I can't breastfeed properly and I have to use formula, or I'm having issues with the pump or whatever. So that actually that is very useful. That is one useful element of it, is, maybe single mums or mums that are struggling will watch her and probably get something positive out of it. But that's only if she posts the real story, because of course if she posts that everything's sunshine and rainbows and mums are watching them thinking, fuck, I'm really struggling, and she's finding it so easy, then that's also a negative. So depends how they play it, but it could be a real positive thing.
But yeah, it's not all negatives. It makes people happy to watch it and all that. It's just the extent to which like some influencers will go to, and you don't know, because although maybe it does seem like they document their whole life on it. It is just in front of a camera. You don't know what goes on the other side of that. So yeah, maybe it's not all like you said. It's if they don't post some of their real life issues and. But then that kind of just goes against what you said in the have some fucking privacy, but show us what you're doing also in private. It's no wonder so many of these people go fucking nuts. Like anyway, back to the fight.
So yeah, I was keen to catch up. Char actually bought the fight. So,
I had some people around, so we split it.
Char has friends, so
I do have friends outside of Bill, believe it or not.
I'm jealous. I was keen to get Char. So Char is not a combat sports. Well, not really a sports fan at all.
I just like sports, but I don't follow any sport in like religiously.
So I love like MMA and boxing. So before I ramble, I was quite keen to get your thoughts on what you think about the actual fight itself. As someone who doesn't usually watch boxing, and really you only watch this because of the hype it got about the actual fight and the aftermath and where do you think they'll both go, etc.
I thought it was fucking weird. Tommy Fury cried at the end. I was like, I got in the sense because it's a weight lifted off his shoulders because everyone before the fight was like, look, mate, if you fucking lose this, that's it. You're done. Like you've ruined the family name, everything. But the actual fight, I don't know. It just seemed fucking like sluggish. Jake Paul looked fucked before he even got when he was walking out into the ring. Like he just looked. He didn't really seem to be like bouncing around. Didn't really seem to have any energy for the fight. And then within, I can't off top. I think like round 2, they were just leaning on each other every 10 seconds, and you could tell as well. Like the punches started to slow, and it just looked like a slow shit fight. There was no. I think Jake Paul kept trying to throw like a fucking haymaker in. Didn't land any of them. Maybe he landed a couple. But yeah, it didn't. For the fights that I've watched, like pro fights, even pro fights like when you watch an undercard and they're not a big name and they haven't had many fights, maybe they haven't even got the best record, those fights are better than what that fight was, considering Tommy's meant to be a proper boxer as well. Although, one thing I would say is I don't know how good a boxer Tommy is, but I'd say it's kind of bit more credit to Jake Paul because he's fought a younger This is the first person he's fought that's actually in their career, like actually a career boxer, and that's meant to be a lot fitter than that. It's not just some fucking washed up. When I say washed up, retired MMA fighter or basketball player, something like that. So that's the only thing I'd say. Like credit to Jake Paul, the fact that he took a few hits and he actually went the whole 8 rounds without getting like fucking weighed in. Because either way, getting punched in the face by a pro boxer is gonna hurt anyone. Like, so if he can take that punch, then fair enough.
Yeah. So that basically proved to me that Jake Paul is going absolutely nowhere in boxing. Nowhere at all. He would never even win, like, say he was British, he would never win a British title. He is going nowhere in boxing. I've always said, like, you just said about, credit to him for fighting a boxer, etc. I've always said when we've spoken about like influencer boxing and him in particular, you cannot call yourself a boxer. I remember I got in a debate with some geezer in the comments when I said something about until you fight an actual boxer, you're not a boxer. You fought retired MMA fighters, retired wrestlers, retired basketball players, YouTubers, etc. And some geezer debated me, and I was just like, if I play a football player at rugby when I'm a rugby player and I beat him, does that mean I'm a pro rugby player? No. I'm still an amateur level rugby player. I've just beaten someone who doesn't play rugby at my sport, sort of thing. Yeah. So I think I screamed out, fight a boxer, and I always used to say amateur boxers with a decent amateur record would beat him. Like novice professionals, I've always said will beat him. For no other factor than Jake Paul is probably better than your average Joe by all means. He's better at boxing than us. He's better at boxing than most people because he's done it now for 3 or 4 years. But when you're fighting a professional fighter who's boxed, say, since they were 12 and they've boxed for 10, 15 years, you will not win. Like, there's no chance you'll win. And I always said that. And he has fought, essentially, Tommy Fury, who isn't a good boxer himself. He is a pro, and he's had a record of 8-0, and he's fought amateur boxing as well, so he has a bit of pedigree. But realistically, Tommy Fury would also get battered by British level fighters, regional level fighters who are professionals. One of his last boxing fights himself before fighting Jake was against that Anthony Taylor geezer, who is also an MMA fighter, and he beat him on point. He didn't even like knock him out or school him or anything. So Tommy's also not a great boxer, and I think people spoke after the fight about like that's done Tommy's stock a load of good, and that's done Jake's stock a load of good because Jake's fought a pro fighter and blah blah blah. But in my opinion, it's given Tommy more hype and more fame and more money. In terms of hardcore boxing fans, I don't think any boxing fan, boxing fighter, boxing pundit will have watched Tommy's performance and thought that's a really good performance, because he didn't look good himself. He beat Jake comfortably, but he should beat him comfortably. Yeah. I still don't think he didn't look great at boxing. His jab was better than Jake's, wasn't that good. He has more power than Jake, still wasn't that good. Because Jake's not a boxer at the end of the day. So I think that he's made a fuckload of money, Tommy. He's grown his name a bit. WBC have now ranked him. So whoever was going to win was getting ranked, right?
Apparently, whoever won is like ranked 40th in world rankings or something now.
Well, so it'll be ranked to... So basically in the top sort of 60, I'd say. Each different world title organisation, so WBO, WBA, WBC, IBF and IBO, which doesn't really count, they'll have like a top 15 of ranked fighters or a top 10 of ranked fighters, depending on the organisation. That basically means that in the WBC, to be ranked, you have to break into either the top 15 or the top 10. So whoever won that fight was going to get ranked. I guarantee you, I'm not even going to look at the list of boxers, actually I am, that are on the WBC top 10, for example, at their weight category. I guarantee you, every single person on that fight would kick both of them from fucking pillar to post. So I do think that in the long run, to stay in the rankings and to move up the rankings, you're now going to have to beat people who are already in the rankings. He can't fight some bum or some tuna can or some bouncer and go up in the rankings. So I think actually long term, it's actually not great that he's ranked, because if he fights someone now who is top 10 WBC in his weight class...
Who, Tommy Fury or Jake?
Both. Well, Tommy, because he's the one that's ranked, but either... that he will get kicked from fucking pillar to post. So if you look at like... So Tommy... I don't even know what weight the fight was actually at. It would have been light heavyweight or cruiserweight, because that's what Tommy fights at.
I think they were cruiserweight, weren't they?
So you look at the WBC rankings for for cruiserweight, for example. People like Lawrence Okolie are in there. Breedis. I don't know if you know who
no
Breedis
idea
is.
who they are.
Makabu fought.
Oh, that was the fight before their fight.
That was the fight before he lost to Badou Jack. These names would all absolutely batter him. They would batter him. They had a better amateur career than him. They've had a better pro career. They've all had more fights. They've all been British champions / world champions, titled for worlds, challenged for world titles, etc. So I don't think in the long run it's very good for either of them to be in the top 10, top 15 of the WBC. I think the WBC are just an organisation that are wanting to get more eyes to the sport, which is fair enough, which is why they are getting behind. Because even after Jake's first fight against Deji, all those years ago, he got given a WBC belt after the fight by the WBC. So they've always been... They just made a belt for him. Yeah. So they've always wanted to be involved in that aspect. So I think my take on the fight is I think it was a shit fight. I don't think Tommy Fury made himself look good or did himself any favours, although he won and he got paid a fuckload. And it, like you said, him crying after, it was a load of pressure off his shoulders. So fair play to him. He beat Jake, which he should be fucking beating Jake. Jake then came out and made excuses, in his interview and said, I was unwell and this, that and the other. Oh, and I'll have the rematch. You won't win the rematch. I guarantee you the rematch would go more so in Tommy's favour, because Tommy wouldn't be stressed and he wouldn't be nervous. He knows he's already beaten him. He's felt what power Jake has, which did nothing to him. Like, I know he got knocked down by that jab in the last round, but he was leaning back, so
According to him, wasn't it?
Well, he says it's a slip. He's salty. It is not a slip. If you get punched and you go down, it is a knockdown. But you can see he was leaning backwards anyway, and he had thrown a punch, so he's off balance. So it's not a hard knockdown. But if they fought again, I think it'd go more so in Tommy's favour. But I really, at this point, he's literally the brother of Tyson Fury. He's the cousin of Hughie Fury, who are both top heavyweights. I would love for him to not have a rematch with Jake Paul and not fight someone like KSI. Although that's where the money is, I get that. Go and fight some boxers and let's see what you're actually up against some of the top guys in the world, because that's how he's going to get better. But Jake come out, and people who support Jake come out after the fight and said about, oh, it's bollocks, like the decision's bollocks. It should have been a draw, or Jake should have won. Realistically, Tommy won every single round. Every single round, he threw and landed double the jabs. Every single round, he threw and landed double the power punches. He got a point deducted, so technically he loses that round. But Jake also got a point deducted in a previous round, meaning that evens each other out. The only round you can then give to, that you have to give to Jake, is the round when he got a knockdown, because that's an automatic 10-8 round. So I would struggle to give another round to Jake. Like, I think ringside, an American pundit had it as a draw, and the English pundit had Tommy like 4 or 5 rounds up, and I was just like, yeah, you can see the Americans just trying to give it to Jake. But how one judge had it as a draw is absolutely
Is that why it was?
atrocious.
Is that why it's split decision? Because I don't get.
No,
how
not
the
even
points,
a draw. Sorry, he had Jake winning, didn't he?
Yeah, Jake.
Yeah, split decision.
I don't get how the points systems work, but from watching other fights, I was like, surely Tommy won all of those rounds.
Probably. This is one of the problems with boxing, though. I'm going off on a bit of a tangent, but the judging is so utterly corrupt in boxing. If you're fighting an American and one of the judges is American, they'll score it for him. And it's hard because you have 3 judges, right? And different judges look at different things. Like, you could land less punches, but land the more effective punches, and he'll score you higher. You could have ring control and be the one constantly on the front foot pushing the geezer backwards, and a judge centering, and a judge will score you kindly. A judge could look at you being on the back foot constantly and even on the ropes, but counter punching and landing the cleaner shots, and then he'll give you the round. So all judges look at things differently, which doesn't help. But how he had Jake winning is fucking atrocious, and it has now fueled this whole thing about, oh yeah, no, the fight was actually close. The fight was not close. Tommy won, like I say, every single round, apart from that last round where you have to score it 10-8 to Jake because there was a knockdown, so that it's an automatic 10-8. But I think Jake looked utterly sluggish as well. You said about he looked sluggish from the get-go. I think what happened is he was in there with an actual professional fighter with a bit of amateur pedigree. He wasn't fighting a 50-year-old Anderson Silva or a dusted Ben Askren or a dusted Tyron Woodley or a Nate Robinson who's a basketball player or the few YouTubers he's fought. He was in there with a boxer. He can last maybe 6 rounds with Tyron Woodley and Ben Askren if he needs to, because he's fit enough to do that, and he's fighting a non-boxer. I think after a few rounds of fighting a boxer and having to move around a bit more, and there being a bit more of a tussle and a physical battle with the grappling side of things, it probably did catch up with him, and he thought, oh, fuck, like, I'm in a fucking scrap here. And he kept leaning on, like he was instigating the leaning. And when a fighter starts leaning and grabbing, what he's trying to do is tie up the fight because he's out on his feet and he feels that he's losing. That's why boxers typically, if they need a breather or they're getting it fucking stuck on them, they'll grapple and stuff. So I think he lost fairly comfortably. Horrendous fight though.
Comfortably was what a praise.
Badu Jack and Makabu, what a fucking fight.
That was good.
And
I watched that. That was a good fight.
Like, that's not even the main event. Someone like Badu... did you know who Badu Jack was before?
No.
I doubt it, yeah. So, Badu Jack has fought, like, George Groves, James DeGale in massive fights. They're British fighters. He's well known. Yeah, oldish. He's well known. He's now a 3-weight world champion. He was a 2-weight world champion before that. He beat, like, Cleverly... He's beat a lot of top British fighters, and he, like, drew to James DeGale, and I think beat George Groves by split decision. But he's a massive name. Makabu, he's Bellew fought him before at Goodison Park. Yeah, literally. He's fought Bellew before at Goodison Park when Bellew won the world title. Like, these are big fucking names in boxing, and they're on the undercard to Tommy Fury versus Jake Paul. And I get it, like, of course, Jake Paul and Tommy Fury are probably more well known around the world because of their image, but it does sadden me to see boxers of that level, like, on that undercard.
So what you were just saying about like, oh, as real boxing fans, things like that. Real boxing fans are now outnumbered by YouTube star fans. Like I'd even go as far to say I don't know, but I know that was Tommy Fury's biggest payday. That's probably going to be the biggest payday he ever gets in his career as well. If he's not fighting if he's not fighting a YouTuber.
Oh yeah.
And all the people on that undercard probably got paid more than they ever would have. Granted, as well, it was in Saudi Arabia, so there's always going to be a little bit more money there. But they probably got paid more because Jake Paul was the promoter as well, wasn't he? He could made
Queensbury, which is Frank Warren's.
Yeah, so they got more out of that than they ever will for any rest, unless they're getting a title fight. And that's the thing. Although all these everyone's like, oh, but it's not real boxing. It's fuck this and that. But the money it's bringing in and the fans it's bringing in is fucking doing wonders for these fighters. And these fighters, although everyone's like, it might piss the fans off, but they'll fuck them fans off and get all these 12-year-old YouTube kids watching it. And they'll get paid 10 times more from that. And at the end of the day, they're all trying to make a living. And eventually it will come to a point where it will just, if, I don't think this will happen, but say all people like you, that are actually boxing fans, you're like, oh, fuck this, I'm not watching boxing again because it's turned into a fucking joke. Though the new fans will just replace you and there's more of them.
No, I agree. I'm not even hating to that in that regard. I completely agree that if Tommy had never fought a YouTuber, he never ever would have got that payday. The money he earned for that is probably what Tyson Fury earns now, and Tyson Fury is literally the best heavyweight boxer, probably, arguably of all time, but definitely currently he's the top heavyweight in the world and has been for years. And he's on that now where he earns millions for every fight, sometimes tens of millions. Tommy would have earned fucking, I don't know, 10 million for that, they said. Or
it was a winner take all as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, they didn't do it in the end.
They didn't do it.
That's what annoys me about Jake as well. He calls all this shit on, and when the other person, when he wins, he makes the other person hold up to it. But whether they both didn't sign the thing or it's not happened apparently. But I agree though, like the money that it brings into boxing, it's a no-brainer that someone like Baddy Jack, for example, he drew a fight against James DeGale, and in the ring after said, this was years back, said I'm fucking fed up with boxing now. It's fucking corrupt. We don't get paid enough. Blah 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 blah. Soon after that, he signed with Mayweather, and he fought on the undercard of Mayweather McGregor, which was an exhibition fight basically. It wasn't like a proper big style fight. He fought on the undercard of that. Since then, he is always on these YouTube undercards. He fights on Mayweather's exhibition cards, or he fights on these YouTube cards. Why? Because he's getting fucking loads of money. And I do get it. Of course you want more money. And while I see it as a circus, I watch it as such. I don't watch it I didn't tune in to Tommy versus Jake for a real high quality boxing match and a real high IQ fight between two world champions. I tuned in to watch the circus that it was, and it was a circus. Something that pissed me off when Radio Raheem interviewed Logan Paul during the fight, and he's shouting Tommy Fury's a bitch. The whole Fury family's a fucking bitch.
I don't know who that. Did you see it where he was like,
"Love you too, man"?
Yeah. He was like, "I love my brother," and he was like, "Yeah, I love you too, man." He wasn't even talking. He to
said
the geezer.
I told him I love him. I this, that, and the other. Love you, bro. And he's like, "Love you too, man." But that annoyed me because that I think that is just a circus. You can't do that shit. I don't care if YouTubers do it, and it does bring more eyes to the sport. It does bring more money to the sport. But that sort of WWE shit where they're interviewing Logan on the speakers during the fight. Tommy sat there in his corner, probably getting. And what he's trying to do there is get in Tommy's head while Tommy is in a fight, shouting you're a fucking bitch, I hope you can hear me, your whole family's a bitch. That shit needs to cut out. That, it's not WWE. This is a boxing fight. That shouldn't happen. But it is what it is. I think it does bring a lot of money to the sport, brings a lot of eyes. And yes, if I stopped watching, and if every real boxing fan didn't watch it, then it would still have more eyes on it than a normal box office fight. Between actual boxers on a Saturday night. So there's money in it, and Eddie Hearn's involved, Frank Warren's now involved, Jake's got his own thing which he's involved, so it's not going to go away. It's going to continue happening. Then it is what it is.
Yeah, but as you get that in anything, don't you? Because obviously influencers, YouTube stars and all things like this are so big nowadays. You stick their name on a brand, whatever, it instantly just fucking skyrockets.
Like Prime.
Yeah, we've got Prime. It's
It's not even theirs.
Yeah, I know. KSI makes music. His music ain't shit. He's had some other artists and that on it, but him himself, this is obviously my personal opinion, I don't think he's that good. Because it's KSI, KSI is go fucking through the roof. Same as like they'll get acting jobs and all these brand deals and that. Because people want him, because they know it makes a fucking shit ton of money and gains it a lot of popularity.
For sure. Like, I agree. If he wasn't famous, would he have ever made it in music? Would he bollocks? And the best songs that he has will have like Craig David featuring and have, you know that song, It's Not Over Yet? He's got that Tom Grennan singing on it.
Don't. Sing me some more, Bill.
It's not over yet. Tell me how you sound from higher.
Oh, yeah.
Burning in my head. Yeah, so that's his song with Tom Grennan. I did it justice. That song wouldn't be as good, I don't think, if it was just him on it. Like, Tom Grennan sings the chorus, and most of his top songs as of recent years anyway have like other people featuring on them. And yeah, if he wasn't famous, would he have made it in music? Would he? Bollocks. But at the end of the day, if I was famous and I wanted more money for something, and you got to, yeah. So I'm not even hating on it. I just think it annoys me as I'm not one of them geezers like, get this out of box and it's ruining, because a lot of people do. I'm just like, no, it does annoy me a bit that gets more eyes than like a fucking high level heavyweight like Dylan White versus AJ. Probably more people would watch Tommy Fury versus Jake than Dylan White versus AJ. Probably more people watch that than watch Tyson. And that aspect of it does piss me off, but I just sort of think it is what it is. Like,
it is what it is. But, oh shit, I was just about to say something then.
Oh, I'm sure it was so insightful.
It probably was, mate. I'm a very insightful person. That's really going to annoy me.
Did you see Cole Froch? You know Jake.
Oh, his Instagram stories after.
You see, he was like, what on earth was that? Rubbish. Like, just giving it. I just think that's even funny because Jake Paul called out Cole Froch. Cole Froch is 40. Cole Froch would fuck Jake up. Cole Froch would fuck both of them up at the same time.
Is it Cole Froch or George Groves? There is Flat Earther. Do you know what Flat Earther is?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of them.
The clue's in the name, isn't it?
But,
I don't know if it's. Is it
yeah, one of them's definitely is. There was a TikTok about it. I'm like convinced he's a flat earther. Have you ever seen that that other video? It's like a documentary, and there's these flat earthers trying to prove that the Earth is flat and like accidentally prove it's round. There's whole like YouTube complications. There's all whole YouTube complications about it.
I love to hate certain people, but that whole flat Earth thing, I steer clear of that. Like I don't even want to watch and hear the logic. I just sort of think, shut up.
Because they all think Australia is a bunch of paid actors, don't they?
It's pathetic. On the topic though, before we move on, did you see KSI's reaction?
When he's saying he'd bang them both out or something,
Mate,
I didn't see it.
I'll get it up again. I want you to put it on the video as well. Oh, put this up on the screen.
Yo! Don't mind me. Just smoking on that Jake Paul pack. Honestly, Jake Paul, trash. Tommy Fury, trash.
Why is he jumping on fucking Tommy Fury as well?
I look at that and I just think you are actually 30 years of age.
Is that how old KSI is? I didn't know that.
He is before anyone. He is 29. He's turning 30 soon. I'm pretty sure. I thought he was about 30, and I looked it up the other day after that video. He's 29. I just think you are 30 years old and you are jumping around topless with a sock on your fucking head.
That's called a do-rag, Bill. That's
yeah. It's not. Hair. No, that's not even a do-rag. He wears just bandanas and stuff to cover his hairline. He doesn't wear a do-rag for. Do you know why they wear do-rags?
Get waves, isn't it?
Why people wear do-rags? Yeah, to get waves. I looked it up the other day.
Do you not remember that whole thing? It's like wave check.
Yeah, no,
they take it off.
I did, but I just never put. I looked it up the other day because anyone can wear one. I know predominantly black people wear them, but anyone can wear them, and it apparently does stuff to your hair. But you see like films in America, everyone just wearing them, and it's more of a fashion statement, I think. But he jumping around topless, screaming like that, doing like a villain witch laugh. You're 30 years old, firstly. Secondly, he would get banged by Tommy Fury. I don't think Tommy Fury is a good boxer. You are not a boxer. You're a YouTuber who has fought other YouTubers and actors and shit. Like, you would get... And he'd probably lose to Jake Paul as well, realistically, because Jake Paul's actually been, like, boxing non-stop for the last 3 or 4 years. So you'd back him to be a bit better than, like, what KSI is. But I watched that and I just think, grow up. I get his audience is younger and people probably retweet that and laugh at it and stuff. But I just think, like... I guess, though, we're 25 and I'm sure
you're sitting here raging about people.
Yeah, we're probably not the most mature either, but when he like screams and shouts like that,
Bill, I cook and do my own washing. That is very mature.
I've actually had to do my own washing since I was 16. It was like a coming of age, right?
Mum get fed up of the shit stains when you were 16. She was like, I'm fucking... past 16 years, I've had enough, Bill.
I don't think she minded those too much, to be fair. But, what, I don't know, 16, she just sort of said, cool, you're 16 now, you can do your own washing. You know, like some parents will say, you're 18 now, get a job. It was like a coming of age thing. She just said, you're 16, I'm no longer doing your washing. And I was just like, oh, what do I didn't know this. I thought I was getting a present for my birthday, not... Yeah, I've actually done mine for a while.
Oh, really? I'll be honest, yeah, I had it. My mum's great to me. She fucking...
Your mum probably still does your washing now, Charles. You probably take it home at weekends.
On the odd occasion, she has washed bed sheets for me. But that's because they had a tumble dryer. And there's only a certain amount of bed sheets you can wash at once. Get them dry.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she has, mate. My mum... Yeah, so I was short of wiping me arse. There's not much she didn't do for me when I was at home.
Well, if I asked, and even after she made me do my own washing, she would like offer to do it sometimes and stuff. So if I asked, she probably would. I just don't ask. I just think I'll do it myself.
I don't think that's a bad thing though. I will do it for my kids. Like until they leave home, I'll do everything for them.
The woman that Char ends up buying online and blackmailing into marrying him for a green card will be doing his kids' laundry and cooking. You will not be cooking for your family when you're a grown man.
Mate, I like cooking. I think it's important to spend time with your family. Obviously, I ain't got kids and that.
Find one then.
Yeah, but I'm young. I'm just playing the field.
Like KSI.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I do think because I think when I'd make my kids get a job, I'm not gonna fucking.
I like 12 sweatshop thing.
Yeah, I'm younger than that. Come on, let's be realistic. Yeah, make them get a job and like make their own way in life, but. I wouldn't be... Do you know you get some parents, they're like, oh, as soon as you're rather out of education or you leave school, whatever, it's like, right, that's it. You get a job and you're doing everything on your own. Pay for all your own shit. Pay me rent and all stuff like that. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I'd make it, like I said, I'd make them get a job. If they needed something or I'd still make sure they had clothes on their back. If they wanted to go and do things... If it become an expected thing, then yeah, obviously that's a different story. When you get sport, it's not raising sport brats, but yeah, I do think, and I'm not saying this is the right way or the wrong way, but I do think if you choose to have kids and they're under your roof, I personally don't think it's right to then be like, oh yeah, well, fuck you, I've now decided I'm not going to pay for a fucking thing for you anymore. Until they leave, when they leave home, yeah, that's a different story.
I sort of agree with some of what you're saying, but actually disagree as well. I do think it's good that when a child gets to 16 or 18 and they've left school, even if they get their first part-time job while they're still in sixth form, I would then say, cool, nice things you want, you're buying them yourself. If you want a takeaway, you're not using my card to fund your delivery and stuff. Because I think when you have a part-time job, you want to go out to the pub at the weekend with your friends. I'm not giving you money for that. You still obviously buy them the basics, buy them stuff for school, buy them clothes that they need. Like, you still buy them the basics, cook for them and buy the groceries and everything. But I do think that it annoys me seeing like teenagers that have a part-time job yet still get like allowance money from their parents every week to go out and buy takeaways and stuff. I just think when you get your first-time job, what did you spend... When I got my first part-time job and I would be going to the pub at 17 and ordering my own takeaways or whatever, that's where my money would go. If I wanted a new pair of trainers that I really liked, you don't have to necessarily wait until your birthday or try and beg your parents to buy it. You're earning your own fucking money. Oh, yeah. So pay for your own beers, pay for your own Top Golf, pay for your own takeaways, pay for your own nice things that you want. and they can buy you the basics, but I still think you need to say to them, you're earning money now, you can pay for your own things. Obviously, you still provide the basics. And I also think that in certain circumstances, it probably is useful to cut spoilt brats off and say, right, you're 21 now, you've got a job, you're doing everything yourself. You need to look at not moving out necessarily, but pay me a bit of rent. Because some people, not everyone's like us, unfortunately, Charon. Some people become spoilt brats and will get too comfortable, won't want to move out because it means they'll have to cut back on certain things. It means they'll have to cut back on going out a few times a week and buying a few takeaways a week. And I think people do get too comfortable. So I agree with making kids pay their own way to a certain extent. As soon as I got my first part-time job, I used to offer my mum money. Never asked for it, not once. Even when I used to try and give it to her, she wouldn't accept it because I used to get paid in cash. So I'd bank transfer like 50 quid, 100 quid for a month and just say...
Was you a gigolo bill? Was that what you used to do? Was that your first job?
I wish. I would have earned a lot more than fucking £200 a month. But I paid her because I wanted to. I had a single mum. She never asked me for rent, but I thought, I live here. I eat fucking food that she cooks for me. I use the bills and whatever. I've got a part-time job now. I still have enough money to buy my own beers and do all this other stuff, but I want to contribute a bit to... And she didn't accept it, so I used to just transfer it into a bank account, or buy her the odd nice thing, or offer to pay for groceries, or whatever it was, because I wanted to contribute. And when kids don't want to contribute, I think that's when you have to be like, you should a bit.
I know of, not actually like in my immediate friendship groups, but I know of people that are still like that. And so I
know someone
I'll
like
admit that I got
on this podcast.
Well,
actually,
I'll admit like my mum and my parents, like, they gave me absolutely everything. Like, even when I was earning my own money, my mum would still be like, "Oh, here's a little treat." I didn't get pocket money, but
sounds like you did.
Say I was like, I'd saved up or something to get something, and she'd be like, "Oh, I'll give you a bit of money towards it, so you don't have to spend all your money." And I got that all the time, but I never took it for granted, and I never ever asked for it. Yeah. I'd never be like, "Oh, mum, can you give me money towards this, or can you buy me this?" I'd always, as soon as I had my own money, I would always offer to pay for myself and do it that way. But yeah, but then my mum would always offer me money as well.
But that's also very good and that is also a good way to be. If you're still going to fund your kids' life or buy them things above and beyond what they actually need once they're earning their own money, what's good is to do exactly that. You've saved up your own money to buy that thing, and only when you're about to buy it, she said, "I'll pay half so you can keep half." Your mum has seen you save up for that thing. Like, I know someone who, a couple who bought a house, and they scrimped and saved up, money for themselves for the deposit. And then once they'd moved in, her mum was like, "Cool, here's some money." Yeah. And she gave, like, I don't know, 5-10 grand, whatever it was. But she was like, "I didn't want to give it to you before you moved in. I wanted the money that you moved out with to be your own, that you've saved, but now you've got this." Yeah. Rather than use my money that I've worked for to pay for your house, you can now furnish the gaff, or you can do something with it wherever you want. So if your kid is working hard and offering money and stuff, then most parents won't fucking accept it. Let's be real. No parent who has a kid who's working part-time or even full-time and not earning that much money, who offers, most parents are going to say no, of course not. But I just think it's good to get them in the habits of thinking, "I've got my own money now, I need to pay my way." And
I don't expect anything off my parents, and I offered to start paying rent, and my mum's like, "No, I don't want it."
And you said, "All right, twist my arm, never mind."
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, fine." You get something nice in for dinner, by the way. And that's a lot of my mum's friends and that would say to my mum, like, "Oh, them two, like, you spoil them rotten. They're never going to be able to do anything when they move out. Like, they're never going to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and things like that." But me and my sister have turned out absolutely fine.
Oh, I was about to say, and they were so right.
Granted, this situation is a little bit different. Yeah, I don't think, that's what I'm saying, I don't think it's necessarily everyone, like, people will be like, "Oh, you have to make them pay their own way, you have to make them do this, otherwise they'll turn out to be a spoiled brat." I don't think that is. I think that's the way you raise your kids, and you raise them to expect everything to be paid for and never have to dip into their pockets, and you create that environment, and they turn out to be arseholes. But my parents never created that. It was like a loving family that would just, like, the thing is, they just provide it because my mum was always like, "I've got the money, so I will. If I didn't have the money, I wouldn't be able to do this for you." And she's like, "Don't ever expect it off me, because as soon as that happens, then you'll stop getting it."
It was the same with me, though. Like, I offered it where your mum said no and you said, oh, decent. You had like a 2-income family. I had a single mum. So where my mum said no, I always just sort of thought, well, yes, like I'm gonna give you the money because I feel bad. And when you're, even if you have a decent job, if you're like a single parent, it is so much harder when you've got 2 kids than having like a joint income. So I was always just like, when she said no, I'd just be like, well, tough, like I'm doing it. And she would try and, probably then the money I gave her, she probably would spend on fucking a takeaway for us anyway, or something like that. Do you know what I mean? So, and of course, when you've got a part-time job, paying like 50 quid or 100 quid really doesn't stretch too far anyway when you're paying bills and stuff. But it was just something I wanted to do. And I think the younger generation in particular are that generation where they've been spoon-fed and had everything handed to them on the plate, and they are the ones that then become that bratty way. Not all of them, of course. Like I say, the younger generation is a stereotype because typically they are entitled. But
my little sister, she's
aren't.
got a Saturday or Sunday
of
cafe
course.
job.
Yeah. A lot of them are like that. I bet, like a lot of them are just normal. But I think there's a lot more entitlement in that younger generation now, and brattiness in that younger generation.
I think a lot of that comes from like society coddling them into. And if you get parents like that are that way inclined, like I'll say left wing as a generalization, left wing view sort of thing, that, and it's like, but you almost deserve everything to be handed on you to a plate, or you shouldn't have to go to work and have to deal with some sort of adversity. If you go to a job and your manager has a go at you for doing something wrong, that's it. Just you don't deserve that. Quit.
We spoke about it before. It's the same as like some parents now for the younger generation. You're doing shit at school. It's not fucking fix up your little shit. It's what's the teacher doing wrong.
Yeah.
It's
and
the same thing.
Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it can be, because I know at school I had some shit teachers, but I can't imagine I was a fucking saint for some of them as well. There's, like anything throughout history, there's good points, but then there's points. Someone's always just going to take it too far, isn't there? Aren't they? It's like, do you know the Me Too movement? So it's obviously about like with girls, and that, one of the most amazing movements ever. But then it gets taken too far, which actually spoke about this other week, where it turns into all men are criminals. Everyone's got it in for each other. Everyone's got it in for women. Like, women can never do anything, and it's almost like you're just fighting against what you're actually pretending you're fighting for. Back to the parenting point.
Yeah, we went through that every week, but with the parenting thing, I think it can, if you raise them the right way, like you said, you didn't have to pay for anything, and you basically had your ass wiped, but not in the same way as like a brattiness. It was like you did offer to do things, and I think that it is important. Because I think some people do just get too entitled, and they expect these things, and then you grow up to then you get your first job and you start renting your first house, and you think, oh fuck, like, and it hits you like a ton of bricks. I think if you've not understood essentially the value of money, then it hits you like a fucking ton of bricks. You look to move out, or you get your first job, or you're commuting up to London, and you realise, oh fuck, the train fare's £400 a month. I only get paid like $1,600 a month after tax for a first job, 24k or whatever. It hits you like a ton of bricks. So you've got to not make kids pay their own way and demand that everything they buy, that you're working now, you have to pay rent, you have to contribute. But you have to, I think, to an extent, make them understand that, look, money's valuable here, and you've got to understand the importance of it.
I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's teaching the value of money. Don't necessarily be like, yeah, you got fucking paid for everything, but the hard-earned money is hard-earned money, and you don't fucking spunk it up the wall. You don't expect everything to like be handed to you on a plate and that. But yeah,
apart from the cocaine.
Yeah, that's on a shiny surface, isn't it? But, yeah. To be fair, just to clarify, I was saying my mum a lot in there. That's just because my mum always handled the money. My mum would always be the one and be like, "Oh, go on, I'll give it to you." I think, yeah, my mum's a bit soft like that.
I got like don't speak to my dad or see him as much now, but I like when I was at uni, he used to give me money and stuff. But what he gave me was what he used to pay my mum each month for like child support. So when I went to uni, my mum said to him, "Well, like pay it. I don't need it. He's not living with me. You can pay it to him," and that helped me through uni. Obviously, because student loan covers certain amounts, but like it was nice to have that extra money. So I did get a bit of money from both my parents, and if I'd have lived with my dad, obviously I lived with my mum, and he wasn't around as much. But if I'd lived with him, I probably would have offered to pay rent as well. And again, he probably would have said no, same as my mum did. But Yeah, mainly, obviously, my mum was the... Yeah, don't let your kids be fucking brats because they'll turn out like Jake Paul, but without the fucking money.
Have you seen that video of him where it's like, I don't know if it's a YouTube or a TikTok, and he's going around like pretending he's from like the hood and shit. And he's like, oh, we never had fucking nothing growing up, like all this shit. And then someone just like, fucking does that thing with it. And he's like, your dad was a successful businessman. You had all of this shit growing up. And
Mate, it's true. Like, it's the same as... KSI did this, actually. He's got a documentary on Amazon Prime.
I saw that.
And
I think he comes across like an arsehole.
He does come across like an arsehole. He's saying about like his tough upbringing and whatnot. You literally had YouTube videos in the house you grew up at. It's a fantastic house. It's better than fucking 80% of the people in the world live like, basically. Same as Jake Paul. In case I did that, you came from money, you went to a private fucking school, you're not some hood rat who had a tough life, you had money your whole life, you never wanted for anything, and I don't claim to know the ins and outs of your actual childhood, but you live in a nice house, you get fed, you have parents that love you, you went to a private school, so you didn't have it that rough. Same as Jake Paul. I saw a different clip to what you're talking about, but he was like, yo, bro, I don't play this shit. Cleveland, Ohio, G, blah, 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 blah. I'm a fucking gangster. And he's saying about...
Disney Channel.
You know, yeah. He's saying about, you know, if I hadn't come onto this boxing path, he was like, I'd be dead or I'd be in prison. And then, yeah, literally someone clips of him, like, dancing and miming and fucking doing all this. And I was just like, you utter prick. Have you seen the tour of the house? Jake and Logan did a tour of the house they grew up in. It's basically a fucking mansion compared to what we live in. And he's talking about he had a rough life. Please.
So yeah, one day the maid wasn't there to put on my pajamas.
Fucking, he's a twat. And pretending you had a hard life is one thing. To then pretend that you were some sort of G and I was going off the rails and I would have ended up in prison or I'd have ended up dead. How? Would fucking Miley Cyrus have killed you on set of Disney Channel? Like, where were you going to get fucking licked? Like,
accidentally walked into a rough neighbourhood.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, on his way home from the fucking mansion. Just shut up, man. That also pisses me off. People pretending. We won't go into it, but people.
We'll save this for another episode. I don't know if we've talked about this before.
What, people acting like something they're not. Yeah, it just that does.
Do you get a lot of that at uni? I found people do the whole classic reinvent themselves, didn't they?
Yeah.
And you get people, and it's like, geez, come on, you're from Hertfordshire, grew up on like a new build estate.
Mate, that happened in. I remember one of my first lectures. I was sitting.
I'm not saying I grew up in a rough area. I grew up in a very nice area.
I grew up in not a rough area. It wasn't the nicest. Like, there's a council estate near us and stuff, but I would never claim to be some G. And obviously, where I grew up in South Africa, we had nice houses, but you know,
South Africa's not the nicest of places.
But South Africa shit. But I was in this lecture, and these two geezers are like, "Oh, where you from, bruv?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, east, bruv. You? Oh, north." I went, "Oh, whereabouts?" He went. He said the area, and I looked it up. I was like, Hertfordshire you're from? And he was like, no, North London, bruv. And I was just like, Hertfordshire. I was like, that is literally Hertfordshire. And he was just like, oh, and I actually knew the geezer as well. I won't name him, but that's why I said, I didn't just say it to a random geezer. I did literally say, aren't you from Hertfordshire? And I showed the area, and I showed it to this geezer who was from East that he was talking to, and I was just like, Hertfordshire. You're not from North London, bruv. You're from Hertfordshire.
There we go.
Yeah, that's probably a good place to end.
Call it a wraps on the new studio.
Yeah, new studio. Let us know what you think.
I felt a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, so did I.
Get bad back sitting.
I actually much prefer. I didn't think I'd like it as much because I thought like leaning back, and I thought I'd have to lean forward to speak to the mic, but I think it's a lot better. If that one Mr. Melherba can let Char know if the lighting's a bit better.
I don't know how you pronounce that so well.
Let him know what the lighting's like, and we'll keep it this way.